Habaragani, welcome to the International Civil Rights Center and Museum's fifth night of Kwanzaa. This evening, we have Cheryl Harry. She is a cultural curator whose mission is engaging the community in the preservation and celebration of Black heritage. She is the founding director of Triad Cultural Arts Incorporated, an organization dedicated to presenting programming that contributes to a culturally competent community. Their signature event is the annual Juneteenth celebration, which commemorates a milestone in America's history, the abolishment of slavery. For over 20 years, Cheryl Harry has used her broad-based experience to positively impact the lives of others, from grassroots organizations to national nonprofits. She has worked with such prestigious organizations as the Maya Angelou Research Center, the Arts Council, the YMCA, Winston-Salem State University, the National Black Theater Festival, and the Urban League. Her affiliations include Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. She's a charter member in the Association of African American Museums and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. The International Civil Rights Center and Museum is proud to present Cheryl Harry speaking on the fifth principle of Kwanzaa, Nia, purpose.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Harry, Director of Triad Cultural Arts, and I am delighted to be here today to share a few thoughts with you on my favorite principle, Nia, purpose, which is the fifth principle of Kwanzaa. Now, Nia is a Swahili word translated means purpose. When we anglicize the word Nia, we begin to reason, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What do I need to be doing with my life? What path should I be taking? What on earth am I here for? And that is a very good and necessary introspection. But for Nia, in the spirit of Kwanzaa, it's not about you, it's about us. And that means we're working together toward a common goal, building community, and also knowing that we may take different paths to get to that goal, but also knowing that we cannot fulfill our purpose without involving others. So the question becomes, what will be the community of your life? So we look further into the principle of Nia. Its instruction to us is to make our collective vocation to be the building and developing of our community. And this is in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And it's a beautiful and eloquent statement. So if we're going to honor that principle, we have to understand what it's saying and what it's asking us to do. According to the founder of Kwanzaa, Dr. Malena Karinga, a people's collective vocation is a shared and compelling life work and struggle to bring special good into the world. The work that we are doing or our calling should help build and strengthen the African American community. And when we are stronger, our society is stronger. Now, the collective vocation is played out in several ways in the Black community. We have many pathways that are working to affect positive change in our society, but we can never forget the Black church, which was the bedrock of the civil rights movement, along with the NAACP. They were the epitome of collective vocation. And here at the Civil Rights Museum, there's a gallery dedicated to the role of the church in the civil rights movement. And I just think that speaks volumes to the importance and to the magnitude that the church played. Churches hosted mass meetings, were meeting points for rallies and marches, and provided much needed emotional, physical, moral, and spiritual support. They were pursuing a clear and compelling vision, which was equality. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, life is interrelated. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny, and whatever affects one directly affects all of us. Another prime example of collective vocation is the Black Lives Matter movement. When George Floyd was killed and Black Lives Matter took to the streets, they created a resounding call to action that is still reverberating today. According to a Yale study, the police killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in 2020 unleashed an historic wave of activism across the United States, which included an estimated 8,000 mass demonstrations in support of Black Lives Matter. The interesting thing about the Black Lives Matter movement is that it was organic, no distinguishable leader as with our civil rights movement. However, our civil rights movement did not have social media and made a resounding impact on the March on Washington in spite of that. In the Georgetown Business for Impact report entitled Black Lives Matter, From Protests to Lasting Change, it states that the beginnings of the Black Lives Matter movement is that it was supposed to be leaderless, where there was no one identifiable leader, but instead they chose to be a leaderful movement, Leaderful, leading from the grassroots by allowing victims, survivors, and people with personal experience to speak out and stand at the front of protest marches. In addition to being leaderful, Black Lives Matter shares traits with other successful social movements of our time, and most notably would be marriage equality, anti-smoking efforts, and gun rights expansion. One poll showed that support for the Black Lives Matter movement grew from 46% to 53% following George Floyd's murder. And that was driving millions of advocates and allies to demonstrate in the United States and worldwide. I believe the growth and success came about through this movement because it had the main ingredient, and that was the principle of purpose, a clear and compelling vision, a shared mission and meaning that became a cultural compass that pulled us together and directed our intellectual, spiritual, and practical energies to a shared collective aspiration and anchor, and that is a statement from the founder, Dr. Karenga. As we know, slavery undermined the ability for our ancestors to build community ties. But when slavery ended, the first thoughts of the enslaved were, one, to find their people, and two, to establish vibrant communities with homes, schools, businesses, churches, and all manner of celebrations. There is a historic neighborhood here in the Triad known as Happy Hill in the city of Winston-Salem. As freedmen, these former enslaved people wanted to purchase land. However, their former enslavers did not want them moving into their communities, so they decided to sell land to them on the outskirts of town. And this became Winston-Salem's first planned African-American neighborhood. It was a very close-knit community of men and women working to build a better life for their children and their children's children. In a Forbes article written by Dr. Tracy Brower, strong communities have a significant sense of purpose. People's roles have meaning in the bigger picture of the community, and each member of the group understands how their work connects to the others and adds value to the whole. As members of community, people don't just want to lay bricks, they want to build a cathedral. So the everyday contributions of these freedmen mattered not only to their community, but to the city as a whole. There is a young lady here in the Triad by the name of Kelly P. Easton. She's a distinguished community leader, and her current venture is Action for Equity, which focuses on transitioning social justice and grassroots public policy to achieve equity in education. And Kelly is not doing this in a vacuum. She's bringing groups together to tie into this purpose of equity and allowing them to get in where they fit in, which means bringing the power that they possess and their skills to advance their effort. She's leading the movement to reimagine the racial justice ecosystem in her city, but she is not doing it alone. And if there is not a transformative organization in that ecosystem, she will create one by bringing community together. She strongly believes in the changing of systems as the pathway forward to reshaping society. And the last part of the principle of Nia is to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Iyanla Vanzant, author and speaker, said in reference to this principle that we are the bearers of a great legacy, born of kings and queens. By combining our talents with goals and aspirations that contribute to the greater good, we create a pathway for safeguarding the legacy and rich cultural traditions of our ancestors. So in order to restore our people to our traditional greatness, we have to know our history. Black history has often been forgotten, ignored, abandoned, misinterpreted, or erased from history books. The great Muhammad Ali said, "I am an American. I am the part you won't recognize. But get used to me. Black, confident, cocky, my name, not yours, my religion, not yours, my goals, my own. Get used to me." So this principle, Nia, is about legacy. It encourages us to look within, to really set our personal goals, but to also choose goals that benefit our community. It clearly indicates that it's our responsibility to historical preservation as a means of cultural restoration. It is important for us to have local history museums because we can control the narrative and keep it from being whitewashed and from having our presence erased from the landscape. This Civil Rights Museum is a prime example of that. We can tell our true histories. That brings me back to the story of the Happy Hill community that I referenced earlier. There had been a 23-year effort to preserve the legacy of men and women of that community, and some promising events have transpired to make it a reality. We really believe that this is going to become a larger part of our community. So what I want to say to people is don't get weary in your well-doing. Our ancestors did not see the fruition of their struggle, the fruits of their struggle that we have today. In memory of those who came before us, we remember their grave sacrifices, knowing that through them, our passage was made possible. Because of them, our freedom was made probable, and by way of them, the obstacles they overcame, every feat is plausible. So I'm asking that we accept the charge to reverence, remember, and honor those who sacrificed themselves, their families, and all they knew to impact the lives of others. Because the freedom of our people lights the path for the freedom of the world. And we honor those who continue to carry the torch, who found their purpose and their calling, and have committed to obtaining and sharing knowledge and information that will cause us to ever be free. Nia reminds us to put ourselves on a path of purpose by setting goals for ourselves and for our community. In her last will and testament, Mary McLeod Bethune wrote, "Sometimes I ask myself if I have any other legacy to leave. Truly, my worldly possessions are few, yet my experiences have been rich. For them, I have distilled principles and policies in which I believe firmly, for they represent the meaning of my life's work. They are the product of much sweat and sorrow. Perhaps in them, there is something of value. So as my life draws to a close, I will pass them on to Negroes everywhere in the hope that an old woman's philosophy may give them inspiration. Here then is my legacy. I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. As long as Negroes are hemmed into racial blocks by prejudice and pressure, it will be necessary for them to band together for economic betterment. Negro banks, insurance companies, and other businesses are examples of successful racial economic enterprises. These institutions were made possible by vision and mutual aid. Confidence was vital in getting them started and keeping them going. Negroes have got to demonstrate still more confidence in each other in business. This kind of confidence will aid the economic rise of the race by bringing together the pennies and the dollars of our people and plowing them into useful channels. Economic separatism cannot be tolerated in this enlightened age, and it is not practicable. We must spread out as far and as fast as we can, but we must also help each other as we go. I just want to share with you a few more highlights from her last will and testament. One is love. She said, love builds. The other is hope. The Negro's growth will be great in the years to come. The other, a thirst for education. Knowledge is the prime need of the hour. Respect for the uses of power. Power intelligently directed can lead to more freedom. And then she goes on to say, I leave you with faith. Faith is the first factor in a life devoted for service. I leave you with racial dignity. I want Negroes to maintain their humanity at all cost. And then she leaves us with a desire to live harmoniously with our fellow men. I appeal to American Negroes, North, South, East, and West, to recognize their common problems and to unite to solve them. And finally, she says, I leave a responsibility to our young people. The world around us really belongs to youth, for our youth will overtake its future management. And she goes on to say that we must sharpen these tools in the struggle that faces us and find new ways to use them. She says the freedom gates are half ajar. We must pry them fully open. So if you will, please just take a moment to take this affirmation of Nia with me. And the affirmation is, I will make a special contribution in life and do so joyfully, willingly, and freely. I will try my best to find my path and purpose in life through prayer, meditation, and spiritual readings. And then I will take positive action. And lastly, I will use my talents in cooperation with the talents of others, so together we may prosper. Thank you. Have a purposeful year.
We thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that you continue to gain insight as well as be educated around the principles of Kwanzaa as not just a celebration, but principles to be practiced 365 days of the year. We will have tomorrow night the principle of Kwanzaa, and I will be your speaker speaking on this principle. Please know that the sixth night of Kwanzaa is a special night. There is what we call the Karamu, which is a feast, and it's when everyone collectively comes together to celebrate. So we hope that you will join Kwanzaa Collective in Greensboro for their annual celebration, as well as many other celebrations that will be happening throughout the city. I will look forward to seeing you as I speak on the principle of Kwanzaa creativity.